At the beginning of the school year, one of the very first assignments, I think I usually do it either the first or second day of class, I have an assignment called Introducing, and they have to write a letter to me, and it's where they introduce themselves. And some of these students I have known in the past, but these are students who are coming in with a lot of negativity towards math. They hate math, they don't want to do it, and so any way I can incorporate their interests into the class, they might enjoy the class a little bit more and makes them maybe be a little less timid or have a little less anxiety when they walk into my classroom. And so by them writing this letter, I have them answer certain questions like, what are some of your hobbies or interests? What are your favorite things about math? What are your least favorite things about math? Describe a positive experience that you've had in a math class. Describe a negative experience. So not only am I trying to focus on the positives that they've had, but I also want to learn from the negative experience that they've had so that I'm not going to be that teacher that does some of those things that really drive them crazy. So by incorporating their hobbies and interests, but also finding out what scares them about math and what they really want to work on. That's something else I have them discuss in their letter to me, is what they really want to learn this year. Because even kids that struggle have things that they want to improve upon. They're not excited that they're bad at math. Most of them want to get better. And so by doing this letter, they really have an opportunity to open up to me. And a lot of students told me afterwards that that was their favorite assignment that they got to do, because it's the first time they really felt a teacher was going to listen to them. Not just about what they like, but about their positive and negative experiences. I've learned some things, some of my students I've taught in the past, and I didn't even realize that they ride horses. You know, this letter really gave me that time to take the time to get to know my students as a whole person, not just as a math student in my classroom. And they're knowing those things, you know, whether it's skateboarding or horses, I can, you know, use those ideas in my tests, questions, in games and activities that we do in class. You know, if they're really outdoor kinds of kids, I should be getting them outdoors to do some activities, or maybe I'm going to lose them in class. When the students don't have to worry about understanding something that's uncommon to them, they can really focus on what they're trying to learn. So if the word problems or if the activities that we're doing are about things that are real to them in their lives, then they can focus on the math part of it and not like, why are they asking me about money in Japan? Who cares about money in Japan and how they calculate the currency of the yen to the dollar? They care about, hey, I gotta go spend money at the tilt, you know, the arcade, and that's exciting to me because that's something I like to do. And so they don't have to worry about the idea. They can focus on the concept as well as having some interest. Hey, that's something I do. I was trying to assess whether or not they knew how to compare fractions, especially those with unlike denominators. And so I had 3 centers. One center was an abstract center that I called numbers and symbols, where the students had to use numbers and symbols to compare the fractions. They were both items on the assessment that they could write the correct answer, and then there were others where they could choose the correct answer to show whether or not they could just recognize the correct answer, or other times when they'd actually be able to express the correct answer. And so that was the abstract center. And then there was a center that was representational, in which they had to use drawings to represent a larger or smaller fraction or an equal fraction to the one that was given, or they had to choose a drawing that represented a larger or smaller. And then the last center was objects, or a concrete center, in which they had to use actual manipulatives. We used fraction bars that the students could actually manipulate and create their own fraction bars with them to show a larger or smaller than fraction, as well as having to choose which fraction on the fraction bars was bigger or smaller than another. The abstract level, they were really having to focus more on the procedure, where I felt at the concrete and the representational stage, they were really looking more at whether or not they understood the true concept. And so it really helped me find out if the students were just able to kind of do the rote process and just memorize an algorithm and be able to compare fractions that way, or whether or not they really understood what those fractions were and their sizes, and whether or not they were able to compare them. It shows 2 different levels of understanding. Sometimes students can have a lucky guess if they're just picking, but sometimes the students are able to recognize the correct answer, but they aren't always able to produce it. Same vice versa, but that way you can really see whether the students are kind of just choosing the right one or whether they're actually able to go through the thought processes to get the right answer. I definitely think that by doing both, I can see if there is some level of understanding. If they can't express it, they might be able to recognize it. It shows at least a basic level of understanding of that, whether it's at the concrete, representation, or abstract level.